always is a weird 15-second lag or 20-second lag. Where we all look really awkward, and Richard was dancing one day and Scott's doing a head bob.
Yeah.
We're live. Right. Welcome, everybody, to the Behind the Geeks show, episode number 0.09246, I think we're at.
We must be on
we're
one
never
by
going to
now.
get to we're never going to get to episode 1 because we always break things. And if we keep at a beta version numbers, then we're okay with breaking things. So this is version whatever number I said it was then, or episode whatever number I said it was then. I am joined by Mr. Scott Riley, Mr. Pete Matheson, and Mr. Jason Kemsley tonight in replacement of Richard Tubb, who's away in, what country is he in? One of these, Switzerland, I think he's in? Maybe, some country over in Europe. He's traveling at the moment. And so Jason has stepped in tonight. We're going to be having a discussion with Jason in the room all about hiring and managing and leading technicians, which is one of those topics that all of us in the MSP space that have ever hired a technician or been a technician knows how challenging and how much of a nuanced kind of thing it is leading and managing and hiring techs out here. And Jason is doing a lot of it. He's building a team of engineers all around the world in his service called Uptime Solutions, which is an outsourced help desk provider for MSPs. Lots of UK MSPs know of him and use him, and there's a bunch over here that are as well. So we're going to be diving into that conversation shortly. But first up, we're going to run through a little bit of industry news that we always dive into. We'll try and keep it short, but this week I saw one of you guys mention that Microsoft has backtracked or is pausing on some of those recent Office 365 or licensing changes that they came out with. Who knows a little bit more on that one?
Yeah, this was an interesting one shared by, I think it was Joe Burns who posted it on LinkedIn. Assuming I'm reading it properly, I believe it does look like Microsoft might be changing slightly the way the upcoming changes are happening. I'm just trying to share my screen here. Me and Scott were chatting about it briefly before, but I don't know if Scott, you might be able to explain a bit more from your understanding, because I think my understanding might be a bit different. So there's a new platform.
Yeah.
In the CSP new commerce experience. Do you know what the new commerce experience is?
Yeah, absolutely. So new commerce experience is this new model that they want to get the CSP partners moving into. They did it with Azure last year. And so, the new commerce experience came in, and it was a different way to, essentially for Azure, it was a different way to buy. It was an easier way for Microsoft to kind of steady that there was one currency instead of multiple currencies across the world. It was making it much simpler for them, and in fairness, a bit simpler for us. But new commerce experience for 365 subscriptions actually had a very dramatic change. So we know about this 20% price bump that's coming in March, but this actually had another 20% price bump involved. It was basically trying to get you as a CSP partner to get your customers locked into 1-year minimum contracts. Now, a lot of CSPs, a lot of partners don't actually do that. They like to keep their customers on monthly flexibility. And so you can keep your customer on monthly flexibility, but what it meant was a 20% price increase if you wanted to let the licenses flex monthly. Now, there's been a lot of outcry and a lot of uproar trying to take this back to Microsoft and say, hey, this isn't a great idea. This isn't a great way of supporting smaller MSPs who really rely on this flexibility with their customer, and also in a backdrop of COVID where customers have needed ultimate flexibility. They don't know whether their staff base are coming or going, whether they're staying working at home, whether they're growing or shrinking or merging. It just seems a bit tasteless, I think I've said before, to now start to say, hey, we need you to start committing to 1, 2, and 3 year contracts. There's loads of challenges for the MSP in that what happens if my customer goes bust? I'm now stuck for these 1-year committed terms. Or is the distributor going to back that off, like your Pax 8s, your AppRivers, those kind of guys, or Zixes? Are they gonna take that and weather the storm? So this announcement looks like they're going to back off and say, hey, we've listened to the partner community, and actually we're not going to implement the changes that we've implemented. In there, it says, if you move your customers across early in January, then we'll give you a 5% discount. If you move them across early in January, then what we'll do is we won't put this 20% price bump in. We won't put it on those monthlies, and so you can just carry on exactly as you are today. But there's a time restraint. It says, you'll move them across early. Great. Thanks for getting onto the new commerce experience. But come June 2022, then actually it's potentially up for grabs. There's no guarantees that discount that we've offered right there is going to stay on. And so they're actually saying, yeah, get people signed up, get people on early, and then we'll tell you later on whether we're going to bring that 20% price bump back in. And oh, man, that sucks. Like I'd like a clear statement, please. Can you tell me, is there going to be a 20% price bump or not? Don't tell me to get people moved over, because once they're moved into new commerce experience, I can't move them back out. And I guess, I mean, this freight train's coming, so we're going to have to get on board at some point. So this is a nice way to get on board and get a discount and, you know, get some flexibility. But it seems like coming down the line is a 20%
so
price
for
bump.
most MSPs themselves, when it says the ability to place new orders on the existing platform, that MSPs themselves probably don't really see much of that. Is not most of that dealt with by like the CSPs end, like Tech Data and Pax8 and
It is. You'll do it inside whatever portal that they provide to you. Yeah. So you will have the option to buy those licenses. Now in Azure, it was quite simple. There was Azure Program and Azure Plan. You know, one of those was the new commerce experience, one was the old experience. And as we get to January 2022, if you've still got customers on that old subscription, you will stop earning incentives and you will stop getting your rebate discount. You won't get any of that. So you'll just essentially be buying it at retail. So you've had a year to transition is basically the message from Microsoft. It started in January 21, it's now 22. You won't get paid anymore on those old subscriptions. You need to be on the new plan. So that is going to happen with CSP. But the big uproar is stop forcing us into these 1 year minimum commitments. We need this monthly flexibility. And so they're saying, hey, here's the announcement. We've heard you guys. Here's the monthly flexibility, but we can take it away at any point.
Yeah. Pushing the can down the road, by the sounds of it. Anyway.
Potentially, but I agree they could be a lot more clearer in terms of their messaging. So I think that would be good to clarify very soon.
Yep. Next in news, I saw Jason, you've listed here that the Windows 11 rollout is now ramping up very quickly. What did you hear about that, Jason?
Yeah, so it's really interesting, right? As techs, we got really excited about this new Windows coming along, and then actually the thought of it coming along meant we all kind of panicked a little bit. It was in a bad time, and so many kind of said no. Take that back, hold it. Let's wait and see what it's like, and then we'll make a decision. But Windows and Microsoft a bit more clearly saying, as opposed to 365, they're ramping up that adoption. And that update is going to be pushed out en masse, kind of whether you like it or not, unless you've got the little reg key in there that says, please stop this. So if you haven't and you don't want to update, you need to go and make sure you throw in that reg key or similar, because it's coming, and it's coming in the next month or two very, very quickly.
Right. I think that's a good thing in the long run as well, though, because this is not like a Windows XP to Windows 7 upgrade. It's not a massive code-based shift. It's just this. I've installed it on my laptop, and I look at it as just Windows 10 with a nice theme put over the top of it. Like the whole underlying thing is pretty much exactly the same. Microsoft has said that everything that works on Windows 10 should work on Windows 11. I'm sure there's some few edge cases around the outside of things that might not work in there, but I can't imagine there's going to be a lot. So the reality is most of the change is just this slight cosmetic shift, which doesn't really even need educating clients on that much, because there's not that much that actually has shifted that's going to affect day-to-day operations of an end user in there. So I think moving it along and getting people up to the new code base and making it look good I don't think it's a bad thing overall. So I think it's pushing along and coming along, and it'll be here. And I quite like it. I think the design is really nice. The only thing I hate about it so far is when you right-click now on anything in File Explorer, you've got to go to the second sub-level menu, because they're hidden all the important things that all of us techies use in the second sub-level menu. But outside of that, I enjoy the rest of Windows 11. I think it's got some good things in there. It's as fast as Windows 10 for me. It's a much nicer design. The one thing I am looking out for is the bloody Microsoft Teams update, so that it gets off that silly Electron framework, because Teams for us is bugging out on us every single day for every one of my staff members at the moment on the old framework, on Windows 11 as well, not just on Windows 10. Yeah. And I know that's an underlying issue with the framework that they built it on, and I can't wait for that to come out in the new one, which I believe, and you probably know more than me about this, Scott. I believe it's January, February, March. It's due, but that was hidden somewhere in a blog post. I saw that time frame, and I don't know whether it's real or not. But
no, it is due.
Like one of the reasons for using Electron is to make it once, package it up, and then it works on like everything.
Correct.
Makes it a lot easier for them.
Yeah. So what were you saying, Scott?
It is coming. It's definitely coming. The version we've got built into Windows 11 is just like the home user version,
yeah,
so
like
it lets you
home
connect
Skype.
live accounts. So
Yeah.
it's not great, but yeah, you can tell when you're using Windows 11 and Teams. It's a silly little thing, but if you can see square corners on the edge, you can tell that app hasn't been optimized for Windows 11 yet, because the rest of them have got the nice rounded corners.
Oh, do they?
And so you pop open Teams and you can see the square corners, and you're like, huh, okay. So yeah, it's definitely not optimized for 11 yet, but we all want, you know, a nice fresh version and easy tenant switching. Just let me flip in and out of tenants. It works so well on the mobile. Just get this on the desktop.
Make it
It's not like
working.
it's made by Microsoft or anything.
No.
But then again, I saw this week a bunch of people complaining about Microsoft spending a whole lot of R&D or development time in putting a feature inside Microsoft Edge, a required feature that's going to, or not a required, but it's going to come in on every single version of Microsoft Edge that allows people to buy things via e-commerce over 4 easy payments using Zip. And you think, if they're putting their development work onto finance plugins, it's not even a plugin, it's not an add-on or anything, it's actually part of Edge that you can go to any e-commerce site now and click a button and pay for it over 4 easy payments. You look at that and you go, guys, get your dev team back over onto this, getting this Edge thing rolling out faster. That's a bloody silly thing to be working on. But anyway, we're not making the decisions. Next up bit of news, and this is a big one in our industry, in the MSP space. Lots of MSPs use a persistent threat management or hunting tool called Huntress out there, which is one of the most known about persistent threat hunting tools for MSPs. They've got a really great reputation in the MSP space, and they were hacked this week, or they had a security breach this week. And I was on a call with Kyle, who's the CEO and founder of it. He was an awesome guy, and I've got a lot of respect for how he runs a company. And he was telling me that, like, one day, this is on a public call, he's going, one day we're going to be hacked as well, but we can't avoid it. What we can do is show up the best way possible when it does happen. And it's happened. And it was luckily not an attack that got access to any client data or anything like that. It was just on one of their QA non-production systems. But what they've done here is they've gone and put out this amazing, which Pete's got up on his screen here, response, incident response that shows how they reacted and how they're pushing the MSP industry to go and do incident responses similar to them out there. And I'd encourage anybody on this call, if you are an MSP, go out and I think, I don't know how we can share this link in the thing. I think I can copy and paste it in the chat over here and you guys will all be able to see it. But go and click on that thing. Don't read it all right now while we're on this call, but go and have a look through it. They've done what I'm, in my not so humble opinion, is the best job of an incident response that I've seen in the MSP world. And it's set the bar very high for how incident responses should happen from now on. And so to me, that's huge news that the people that are out there that are protecting the hackers, protecting people from the hackers have also been hacked out there, but they've gone and given a great response to it. So I don't know if any of you guys have read that thing yet, but if you haven't, highly encourage you to go and do it. It's a bloody amazing read, and I've got a lot of respect for Kyle and even more respect for him and his team after reading through that thing at the moment. It's also one of those things that I think, as I said, every MSP should go out and read it, but I think it's one of those things you could also send out to your clients to show them that even the people at the top of the food chain that are protected beyond any means, like beyond any level that any of us are protected at, are still got ways that people can find, or holes that people can find in their systems. And it's just kind of setting that expectation up front that it's not a matter of when, it's a matter of when nowadays. And this articles like this and responses like this go a long way in helping in that process. So go and check it out if you haven't checked out that one yet already.
Are we expecting Microsoft to acquire the Huntress PR team? Is that what we're saying?
Oh, I'd hope so.
They'd be really good if they did.
Absolutely. I looked at it in awe. I literally looked at the response in awe and just the way that they went through the response and went, I can't even hold a candle to building a company and a culture and a team that's been able to go and do something like that. They've just built something amazing there that a team can go and pull together, rally together and respond the way that they did. And that to me is what it's all about, is going through that thing there. And yes, I think many companies should go and poach their HR team or go and poach their team or whatever, or in better words, take inspiration from what they've done here, because they've really done an amazing job and worth going and looking at, just to take some little inklings and ideas for the way you might respond to things.
I think just the way it's presented, and yes, if you've had like an incident like this, but even rolling back to as far as RFOs, like reason for outage reports, not many people I've seen actually send RFOs to their clients. When there's been an outage, network down, whatever it is, sending an RFO can be a really, really sensible thing to do. It details exactly what's happened, why it happened, what you've done to remediate the issue. Just simple things like that can make a big impact when you're working with your clients. So just to take that another step further, but yeah,
1000%.
absolutely for cyber instance, yeah.
Yep, 1000%.
It's not even that as well. It's the honesty that's in there, because I've been in businesses where they've written RFO reports and it's absolute garbage. It's just designed to just placate.
It's written by a
customer,
PR team, not a technical
team.
Yeah.
Cut down the noise. There was a technical incident and there's no content. There's no content.
Oh, what you mean, like the Kaseya hack a few months ago, where it looked like the PR team wrote the video.
Yeah, but like these guys are going, hey, do you know what? Like someone managed to brute force an RDP session, and there's a frowny face, because we all know that is something that is like the most basic of things that could have happened. But they've been honest and gone, yeah, guys, you know what? This is what it is.
And this is what caused it. This is our thinking that led us there. This is our thinking as we spoke to our legal and our insurance teams, and this is the decisions they came back with. And they go through that whole thing, unpacking the entire incident in very detail, which just goes through that whole decision-making process. And I think it's an awesome read. It's one that every one of you should go and take a look of. That's enough of news, though. Let's dive into the topic at hand so we can get young Jason Kemsley up on the podium here and grill him about techs and hiring techs and whatnot. So I thought we'd last week we were talking about the whole process of outsourcing and whatnot. And this week I'd like to talk a little bit deeper around hiring and leading techs, because it's really, really, and I think there's probably, we could have a show on each one of them, hiring and separately leading, and maybe another separate show on managing techs. But Jason, you've been dealing with this pretty deeply. Do you want to give us just a quick bit of context about how many you've got on the team now and how they're distributed around the world? And then maybe let's hear some of your, if you care to share, some of your top tips on how you start the process of attracting and hiring them in the first place before we get onto the leading stuff, and we'll start the conversation there.
Yeah, it was. I had the pleasure of attending a Tech Tribe meetup just the other day, and this was such a prominent topic. So many people concerned, not just about techs, but account managers, salespeople, and I think there's an innate ability in us techs to sort of get a bit carried away or a bit flustered at the idea of hiring in any way, shape, or form. So we're just over 30 people now, between UK and New Zealand. Pretty much 99% of that is tech. I'd like to include myself in there, although my tech abilities have probably faded somewhat, as I found out this morning. But the thing that, and I was thinking about this last night because I was trying to prepare. I realised I had big shoes to fill on this episode. I was thinking last night that everything I'm hearing is so overcomplicated now that almost what I wanted to talk about was just stripping it back to basics. And it made me think about a speech I heard, a TEDx speech that I was listening to about creating clarity almost. And so the first thing I kind of wanted to get your guys' take on, but also share my own take, was an employment is a fairly simple way of saying, hey, I'm going to give you this, and in most terms it's monetary, and I would like you to give me these set of things back, and that might be a certain amount of work or a certain amount of tickets or whatever it may be. I tend to see in MSP, certainly at the moment, that process, that piece there is so overcomplicated, and expectations are so wildly opinionated, or how they take it, how they receive it. And so I usually am seeing quite a lot that there's a misalignment between the leader and the tech. And when we strip all of that back and we come really back to basics and we look at that exchange, what is expected from each side, and having a human conversation, I struggle to see how we get in the conundrum that I've seen dotted around so often. And I know Pete's, I've heard Pete speak about this and about how upset he was at going to tell his techs about the acquisition, and all of that type of thing. And that genuine connection, that genuine transparency, and that genuine openness, I think is the reason he reached where he reached, because he had a buy-in from an entire team behind him. And so I'm wondering, I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I feel like it's becoming a little bit over complex at the moment. And if we strip it back to basics, we really do need to look at that exchange, making sure both sides know exactly what they're getting. There's no mis-expectation setting when it comes to the salary, so why should there be on what we want from the person on the other side? And if we start there, and we can talk about interview process and some of the things I've heard people do and we do, but you kind of can't go wrong, can you?
You can always go wrong.
I love that. But I do love that, because I think, you know, if I distill that message in my own brain, I'm like, it's about people at the end of the day. And what we get when we hire techs, or when we're looking for techs, is we sometimes get people who've got an absolutely incredible talent or gift or skill. And I would rank that as like a high IQ level for what they do. But sometimes in those tech roles, what we struggle with is an EQ. And what we can also have is managers who've risen up through the roles, who are, again, very good technically, but maybe don't have that high EQ as well. And I think that's where we start to lose, you know, some of the relationship. And you're right, Jason, it's absolutely about people, and it's about building strong relationships. And that's how we develop great teams, and how we can develop great culture. But I don't know. Maybe it's not just a tech space. Maybe this happens in accountancy as anything else, because you get these deeply technical, you know, very, very skilled, gifted people who maybe just don't have the great personal skills. And we have to encourage and grow and champion those people. And I find there's a huge amount that comes from, you know, positive feedback and positive engagements and reinforcement of work and outcomes and activities. And I don't want to drift too far from your topic, but I just think it is so much about people. And you're right. I think that gets lost in tickets and processes and targets and SLAs,
contracts,
and wait times. Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, those pesky things. But like, so much of it gets lost in that. And it's a human thing. It's a people to people relationship within the business and with your customers.
Yeah,
I think to add to what you were saying there, Jason, very briefly, the one thing that stuck with me with what my staff said to me a few times was that, you know, with the whole wearing your heart on your sleeve kind of thing, yes, I tried lots of things, I made lots of mistakes, but the intention was there. Like, as long as you're trying to do the right thing by your staff, by your clients, by the company, that actually has a lot more weight behind it than just going on to do this because you want to, I don't know, make money or just grow for the sake of growing. And actually, a lot of people saw that. And I think that's certainly at least what helped me, because, yep, I did screw up. I got things wrong all the time. I'd walk into Monday morning meetings and be like, this week we're doing this because I've changed my mind. But actually, it's because I wanted to push things forward. I don't know if anyone else can resonate with just the walking in. We've changed something. We're doing that now.
Never.
Well, one thing that I wanted to throw in there, actually, well, Jason, and I guess all of you really, how have you dealt with, so you're running the MSP, you've kind of grown over the years. How do you then deal with that stage where you bring in someone at a higher level, like a management level or a team leader, whatever it is, and then kind of you're then dealing with the current staff who feel like they've been there longest, so they deserve those positions?
I had that one.
It's funny I was thinking about telling this, and I hope he doesn't mind, because I suspect he'll be listening. Around 8-9 years ago, when we were sat in just a small, I think it was a 3-man office, one of our first employees, a chap called Liam, he exhibited every single bit of culture and personality that the vision was there, everything was there, the alignment was there. And so when it came to opening New Zealand, what was really important was not the tech stuff, because you can teach tech, you can get the tech skills, you can hire that, etc. But it was really important our culture flew out there and was maintained and was grown from the bottom up, if you like. Liam was literally nurtured into that role in terms of given the required training, mentored, whatever he needed. Because and going back to Scott's point and your point, Pete, what we identified really early on was that culture was what made it really special. And so by flying him out there, he had a year of fun, I'm sure. There are some stories which we won't stream. He was able to bring the culture. He was able to get some things under his belt. There was a two-way exchange in terms of we took a punt that probably he wouldn't have got in many, many places around the world. And in return, he gave us 110% getting that office going. And so we ended up in the perfect scenario. Now, not everybody has someone they can uplift. So I believe everyone can kind of usually be separated into one of two categories, if you like. You either lead by example or you lead by fear. And I would suspect, reading us all on this call, that we lead by example, if I know everyone well enough. I'm one where if they're stuck in an issue, I'll roll my sleeves up, I'll go and jump into the tech with them, and hopefully I'll make some headway and sort of sit alongside them and share the pain. I think you have to look for that particular type. I think that's the particular type of... You have to look for that lead by example person for that particular role and shoes, right? Anything that's led by fear, unfortunately, cannot come into a modern day organization, I don't believe, or certainly not one that is trying to be as people orientated as we are. So that's one of the first things that I would look for if you're trying to fill that role, is look for how they lead, because that fear piece is the first way to lose your team. And that middle management, I had sleepless nights thinking, hey, not everyone can report into me and Brad anymore. It's not physically possible, and they're not getting the best from us back. So that middle management is almost the most important part. But the skills you can mentor, you've got to get the right leader in that position, and the other bits you can do behind the scenes.
Yeah, and it can certainly be a choppy. Oh, sorry, you go, Scott.
I was going to say, you've got to handle those people who are not displaced, but the people who thought they were the right person for the role. And I think that comes back to that honesty. You know, you've got to be honest with people, otherwise people will not understand. Why did this person come in from nowhere? I've been here 5 years, and you've hired someone else who doesn't know our business and doesn't know our people, and they're going to spend like 3 to 6 months learning and getting up to speed. I could have done that job. And you've got to be really honest in the appraisals. There's a reason why that person wasn't the right fit, or selfishly, there was probably a reason why they're just absolutely your best tech and you can't afford to take them off the tools because they deliver so much value time and time again. Okay, well, how is that rewarded? How is that, what is the career path for them? Have you mapped that out for them? Because they've obviously got aspirations of doing more, and you were seeing them as the lead tech. And it's constantly about having those open conversations, I think, so that people aren't disappointed. They genuinely understand, this is my career trajectory, and actually that is or isn't fast enough, and we need to bring someone in now. And so I'm going to continue on my path, and it's clearly laid out for me, if that makes sense. I won't profess to having always got that right at all, but I can see how it should work and what we try and do.
Is everyone using Traction in their business?
We do.
Yep. Traction.
Yep.
Yeah.
We use Traction.
Yeah.
More for and the why, tied it in with Simon Sinek's our why. The two combined have given us, when you go back to honesty and purpose and sort of being transparent, the why is when I do something or Brad does something or anyone does something we all don't necessarily agree with each other on, is it for the purpose of our why? And as long as we can exhibit that, then we kind of all have to get behind it and talk about why it's good, why it's bad. And so we use it as hey, if you get stuck and you don't know what the right thing to do is, pick the way or the side that best suits our why. And in our case, it's assisting MSPs with phenomenal managed service. So if you're in a dilemma with a customer and you don't know, shall I go and do that? It's a bit over the top. We shouldn't really be doing it. Or should I stop? You pick the one that makes sure that you're doing the phenomenal piece. And that for us has been a game changer as well, alongside Traction.
So one particular exercise we did with the kind of Traction thing with the right bums on the right seats. You literally just draw your org chart out. We just did it on a whiteboard and write down the positions, the roles you want in your business. And we actually did it as like a seating plan within our office when we had an office. And you put those people on the right seats. And actually that then caused a problem, because actually that meant I kind of thought something like, it'd be really good to have like another team over here, but we haven't quite got enough people to fill that team yet. So let's just move one of our guys over here. That guy wasn't in the meeting because I shared it with everyone in a meeting. They then, I think I put the board on its side, left it on the side of our meeting room. He then came in the next day and went, Pete, why are you moving me into my own team? I want to be with like everybody else. So I kind of, one of those lessons you learn. But that was a really useful exercise, like just to go, these are the bums on the seats we need. Where do you fit? And everyone kind of just figures out where they sit in the business and which seats you're missing. And actually that also helped identify who was doing multiple roles. Now, if you
Yep.
write out job description, then allocate those job descriptions to each person. Well, of course, you as a business owner are probably doing like 5 or 10 of them. But actually, by doing that role, me and my business partner realized I was doing a few more than he was, or he had a few other things that I didn't know about. And actually, you can balance things out a bit more, so you're sharing the workload a lot more.
For those of you that don't know what Pete's talking about, traction that he mentioned then is based on a book and a framework by an amazing author, Gino Wickman. It's called the EOS system, is what it's also known as, the entrepreneurial operating system. And it's an amazing framework for running a business in terms of, like he said, then the accountability chart and getting people in the right, here we go, shared a little thing here. Right person, right seat, and figuring out your core values and your reason why and everything in there. And so if you haven't checked out Traction or read the book yet, there's 2 books in the series there. There's Get a Grip and there's Traction. And the Traction book is the textbook about the framework, the whole different the operating system for running a business. And Get a Grip is the parable of an IT services company actually implementing the whole Traction framework inside their business. Who's got that on there? There you go. Jason's got it, a copy of it. I've got some over there on the bookshelf. There's another couple of books in the series as well, but those 2 are the primary ones in there. And it's an amazing business. It's an amazing framework for running a business, but you just got to be careful with it, in that even Gino, the author, says that it's typically aimed at businesses doing roughly $1.5 to $2 million and above. Because if you try and implement the whole thing in a nimble, like a couple of hundred, like a 3-seat business, you'll overwhelm yourself and you won't get any real work done. But you can't. So at that size, you can take little nuggets and pieces and bits and whatever out of it, but don't try and implement the whole framework in your business at that side. Just know that the framework exists and know that you've got something to move into as you do go through your journey. It's like every computer needs an operating system to run. Every business needs an operating system to run as well. And that EOS one is one of the best ones I've seen out there. It takes its roots from the old Gazelle's system out there as well, from Vern Harnish. And what's his book? The Rockefeller Habits out there, and improves on it a little bit in there as well. So awesome book, awesome framework. Highly recommended to go and check it out for any business owner out there, 1 person or 50 person, because there is a whole load of stuff you can pull at any size to go and put into your business. I think I've got Jason up on the screen while I've been babbling away there. So it looked like Jason was nodding along and I'm talking.
I should have mouthed it, right?
You should have. You would have to move your mouth fast to keep up with me.
You hit the nail on the head, Nigel. And the key thing is, there's so many programs out there, right? And it's knowing which ones you take which bits from. There are certain bits of this that we haven't got yet because it's just not entirely fruitful, but they're really important bits. And I was talking to an MSP the other day about something called the bar, which I suspect, Pete, you've done when doing this. And the bar is the concept. And this is a really, really good thing that you can do in your business. If you're an MSP watching this and you've got even 2 guys, 3 guys, you can do a simple exercise like this. You pick your star players. That could be 1, 2, 3 people, however many. You write down their list of traits, 2 or 3 traits that they've got. And then that is your bar. That's the level you've set. And then you get to judge everyone new, everyone existing against that bar. And the goal is you want to be at the bar. It's very similar to the lawyer's education term, etc. And if you're not, here's the traits that are shown to get you to the bar. And just simple things like that, as techs, as business leaders, as whatever you want to term us all as, sometimes simplifying it is quite simply the easiest way when it comes to working and managing people.
Agreed.
Yeah, we did a similar thing. I agree with that.
I was wondering if appraisals, we spoke a little bit about appraisals. What is everyone's view on appraisals? Because I am of a mindset that old business is once a year, once every 6 months. I don't feel like in the modern day that's anywhere near enough. How do you guys feel about that?
We did ours. It depends on the person and what was going on in the business. So we actually started off with doing, okay, let's do one every 6 months. So we're very much like that. And then the next time we went around, we're like, okay, let's do this every year. And actually, none of them were right. It was more a case of sitting down with the individual, planning out what they need to do, what they want to do, trying to set targets and those kind of things. And also we developed ours into making sure those personal targets then aligned with the company goals as well. You kind of go back to traction and the rocks and those kind of things, making sure they're all in line. And then we just kind of look at what's been planned and go, okay, well, let's let's catch up in 3 months or 6 months, and actually just not even really just that catch up. It's checking in along the way, I find, because yes, you can set your target, set and forget it. You have another meeting in a year's time, but there's no accountability throughout to try and check in and say, okay, are we on track there? Do you need any help? Like, has it changed? Like, do you want to do something else? Do we need you to do something else? So, more on an individual basis, I'd say.
I am a big fan of manager tools. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the manager tools one-on-one stuff out there, or one-on-one meetings out there. They recommend a weekly cadence for a lot of things. I've tried the weekly cadence and I've struggled with it personally. But like you said, Pete, it matters. It's kind of customized in our business for the person and the role as well. And so I have appraisal / one-on-one / whatever you want to call them with my team very regularly on either a maximum, typically monthly basis out here, but they're very short, and we just go through the things, the main things, like how are they doing on things, what do they need help with, and what are they making sure they're working on their goals and whatnot, and keeping them kind of short and sharp rather than waiting the 6 months or the 12 months. Sometimes, as you said, people have a 6 month or a 12 month where we go a little bit deeper, and that might line up with a pay bump or whatever it happens to be. But for me, my biggest role in my business is making sure that my team are enabled to do their role. And the more feedback I can give them on a regular basis, the better they're going to be at it, rather than waiting for that kind of 6 month cadence to go in and get things done, or 12-month cadence to get things done. However, and if you go to, I think it's manager-tools.com, and you go to their resources tab, there's a great downloadable PDF that gives you that one-on-one framework that goes through all the different questions and the process for running those one-on-one meetings. And I found it, I didn't use it exactly to the T, but I took a bunch of stuff out of it and kind of tweaked it for our work. And it seems to be, for us, it's the thing that's stuck and worked the best. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that manager tool stuff, or you've got your own framework for how you go through those appraisals out there at all.
I've not used the manager tools, but there was Office Vibe. Someone showed me that to me a few years ago. Office Vibe is incredible for just internal feedback. I mean, you CSAT your clients, why not CSAT your customers and your staff as well? That's great. Anonymous feedback, really, really good. And just going to your point on like a monthly catch up, just one-to-one, just going for a lunch, like a beer and a burger or something, was so valuable to me. We only really got a chance to do it kind of a couple of times before we sold up when we started doing it. But I learned so much from those, like just hour sat down, having a chat. No real focus on getting anything out of it, just more of a social catch up. Is there anything I can do better? Is there anything that us as a business can do better? There were sometimes I sat down and found out personal circumstances that I just wasn't aware of. And actually, had I known, I could have helped, or time off or whatever it was, just help to support them. So I think it's obviously difficult as you scale, but if you can distribute that to your managers or team leaders and give them, it's going to cost you 20 quid, 30 quid a time for lunch. But actually the feedback I got was worth way more than that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you set that culture at the top and that framework at the top for your direct reports that come through. And the goal is that your direct reports then see that and see the benefits of that and push that same thing down to whoever's underneath them as well, and keep that same kind of personalized touch going. And then you saw the results of that when you went and sold the business, and everyone was in tears, right? Because you built that relationship with them like crazy. And and I think it's always, I've got to go and check out this Office Vibe one now as well. See what that's all about. Find a new tool in there.
I don't know if there's any others out there, but Office Vibe is the only one I've come across that initially it sends out 10 questions to every single person in your business.
Right.
And then every week thereafter, it's one question, and it's anonymous responses that people can unhide themselves if they want to kind of leave personal comments. But just the questions it asks are so kind of, it just covers all areas of business. Are you doing charitable work? Are you training your staff? How are people feeling? Are you supporting people? Are you doing good work with your customers? Mental health is a big part of it as well. So you can, and it kind of scores you on each of those areas as well. So as the time goes on, you get more feedback. Your company gets a score in each of those areas. You can then find the one that doesn't work, isn't as highly rated, and then focus on that one. There's one of my clients I'll go back to that, they had a chat with their staff about mental health. They thought everything was cool. They rolled out Office Vibe. Mental health was their lowest scoring score on there. So they were like, okay, we need to do something about this, because if you're going to ask your staff, how are you all feeling? Oh yeah, we're fine. A stock response by everybody. Yeah, fine. But if you actually dig deeper and ask them anonymously, oh, this is horrible. Yeah, I'm hating my life. I'm stuck at home, obviously with the pandemic, and so much more comes out. So a tool like Office Vibe, I'm sure there are plenty others, but it's just the best one we found, to ask anonymous questions and have anonymous feedback is so valuable. And also just communicating that it is anonymous, because that's the other thing, is that staff going, oh, I'm sure there's some way they can find out who I am somehow, surely. No, genuinely, we just saw anonymous, left this feedback, and Sometimes you can figure out who it is by the feedback they've left. That's really the best we have.
But the key thing here is you're creating a space for it, right? Like you're creating a space, you're creating a space for those conversations to happen, for a space for people to be held and felt supported and whatnot. And that's what it's all about, is creating that space for that. One question I got
we didn't always do the right thing, but we tried. Like that's the trying
the intentions there.
We've got a vessel, like just use it and tell us what we need to do.
One question I got for all of you gentlemen is, did you ever get your team to give you appraisals out there?
Oof.
That's kind of what we used Office Vibe for. I mean,
right, okay.
That's how you know if you're a good manager.
Like the old 360 kind of things. I remember forcing a couple, or not forcing, but I did force them kind of, a couple of my team, especially my managers, to sit down and give a reverse feedback to me as their manager. And it was, they had to go away and do all the work about what I was good at, what I was bad at, what annoyed the crap out of them and whatnot. And I sat down and they were eye-opening for me. I sat down there and they were really, really good at being diplomatic but also giving me harsh feedback, which I loved. And I remember my service manager, like his exact words were, Nigel, one of the things that I do have to talk to you about is, I feel that we're all running at 100 kilometers an hour in here and we're doing a great job and we're doing things, but you run at about 300 kilometers an hour. And I just want to figure out, is there a way that we can kind of find a way to either get you to slow down or you can help us speed up or something in there? Because we really want to be in line with you and we just feel like we're a little bit behind. And that was awesome feedback for me, because like most entrepreneurs, I'm sure you guys are with me, is that we try to, like, our brains go 1 billion miles an hour and we've always got a million things on. And sometimes we don't realize that our team can't keep up with us in that. And we kind of let them go by the wayside and they struggle and they get into this mode where they're going, oh, like, is there something wrong with me that I can't keep up or whatever? And that like just sitting in that space with those people in those times and them giving me feedback was an amazing way for me to see that as well. So anyone out there hasn't done it, maybe it's time to go and reverse the thing around and go and ask your team to go and give you guys some appraisals out there as well. You might find some things that you're not aware of.
I don't want to walk out that door and go, "Hey guys, how's it going?" Knowing full well that they are listening right now.
Yeah, there you go. You're going to have reverse appraisals whether you like it or not now.
I'll walk out the door. They'll just throw stuff at me. They're like, "You're like a magpie. We're doing all this stuff. It's really good. Then you see something shiny and you think we should do that too. And then that gets added on top of the things." I'm like, yeah, but that's the only gift I have, is to like keep coming up with great things. I have ideas. That is my gift. You guys do the great work. I just have the ideas. But yeah, Pete, I was going to say, we use Office Vibe. We have done pretty much since day one, like employee one. And you're like, this seems dumb. There's 2 of us, just talk. But no, it's helped get us into a cadence and a rhythm that means we have that continual feedback. We also use it for the monthly appraisals, which I will be perfectly honest and say, hey, we got through a number of monthly appraisals and then work got in the way, which isn't an acceptable excuse, because that's an excuse that we use as managers, as leaders, as business owners, say, hey, it's just busy and there isn't that time. I won't swear, but that's crap, right? There's always time. There's always room that you can make for people, and we have to get better at doing that. One of the things I love about this whole idea about 360 appraisal is that it takes away some of that traditional hierarchy that we get in business, and I've worked for those managers who, some of them been ex-military, and there's a hierarchy and there's a rank and there's an order to things, and you don't step out of line and you don't ask the wrong person and you don't directly jump to the person above the person that you report to, and just okay. I love that, in our business, we don't have to do that. I know that in modern business, that shouldn't be a thing anymore, but I think just breaking down those barriers, getting reverse appraisals is phenomenal, because everyone needs to be called on their crap sometimes. And, it's useful for you to just see, hey, I think I'm helping, but actually I'm holding us back because I keep distracting the team with different ideas. We need to focus and execute and deliver. And as much as I need that, what we also need to do, and this is what we haven't touched on, is when we do those appraisals with the staff or with the team. I hate staff. I work for them. They don't work for me. When we do those appraisals and we set objectives for the year, we are all so guilty of going, hey, Ben, wouldn't it be awesome if we can get you qualified in this thing? Or let's get you doing some exams, because then that'll help you level up your game and we'll take some time out. And then customers. And he will bend over backwards to make sure that customer projects are complete, to the extent that he will always then push back his own development, his own learning time, because customers first. And every tech that we have will do the same thing because they care. They genuinely care about delivering for their customers. And so they'll always put their bit to the back. Well, I'll do that later. I'll do it later. And then you'll get to the 1 year appraisal if you're doing it annually, or you'll just get to 12 months later and go, hey, we said we were going to do all these things. We said we were going to invest in you and give you some time out, and we were going to do this. You have to sit on that as a manager, as a leader, in those teams. You have to sit on those people, and you have to force them to take the time out, because they'll always put the customers first, because they're amazing people. You have to really help. You have to sit on your techs. And I guess that's not just tech teams, but you have to sit on people to push them to take that time out.
Jason, I suspect you're doing a lot of that now with your team and in your training programs and everything. How are you dealing with the whole training in between tickets kind of thing? How are you segmenting time for people to go through it? What are you doing to try and do it with a larger team at the moment, and a distributed team as well? How are you managing that process?
So the first part, just to quickly summarize, because I think that point was so good, Scott. I've seen so many people, and I was guilty of this up until 6 months ago when I had a sort of real harsh word with myself. You never delay one of those meetings. The general rule, I think Brad told me once, that has stuck with my brain is you've either died or you're very ill and you're off. Otherwise, that meeting goes ahead, because otherwise the message you're sending is you can wait, business is more important, or all of the connotations that come with that. So I've become a real stickler for that meeting is happening, and even if you're asking to move it back, I don't want to move that back. Your development is not gonna wait. I don't have the pleasure of getting involved a huge amount these days with some of the training programs, etc. We've kind of segregated roles as part of accountability and EOS, etc. But the big thing that we done is basically so we have to schedule, much like every other service desk. We use dispatch calendars in Autotask, etc. And the way we do it is by simply doing half-day slots. So every, I think it's 2 weeks, you get half a day for either personal development or career development. So that can be, you want to go and, I don't know, read a book to become a better leader, but you're not a leader yet. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be purely business related. But if you want to do business related, that might come with a pay rise at some point if your skills are growing. So having them short and frequent, but then, as you guys alluded to, the flexibility of those appraisals, because I'm certainly seeing from the outside in that people's minds are changing very quickly one way to the next at the moment. So getting the right time frame, but then just making sure they align. So a great example is we have an apprentice called James. James is the dream employee. I would go as far as saying James came from, I think it was McDonald's or a co-op. He had all the customer service skills, no knowledge in tech, sat behind the scenes. He went on his career progression path, which was part CompTIA roadmap that we worked with them with, part the government apprentice, and then his own free will, what he had an interest in, what he cared about. James is now a MCSE server engineer, soon to go into VMware and Hyper-V. In a 3-year time span, he's achieved everything he wants to in the time he wants to. And that's kind of when you sit back and go, do you know what? I love my job. But the way that was achieved is the shorter appraisals for us, because we do have a lot of millennials, and we have found that their brains tend to switch career-wise very quickly, so we need to do them more often. But then having a personal goal and a business goal and trying to aim for them both in every quarter, 6 months, yearly, and do that by the half day every 2 weeks, where you can choose what to do in that half day. If you want training materials, etc., hey, let us know. CBT Nuggets still seems to be the most popular one that people jump to. But otherwise, quite simply, just come sit next to me. I mean, I get to do some cool stuff sometimes, and I might play with some dev environment or whatever, or just take that half day and go and sit behind one of the consultants that's doing the projects and watch over their screen. So they can pick and choose how they use that, but it's a time slot that they're given.
So Jason, to put words in your mouth, you believe you should pay your staff to skill them up so that you can then give them a pay rise later on? Paraphrasing. This is a big topic of contentious discussion with a lot of business owners. Do you pay your staff so they train in work time, or should they be actually taking that time in their own spare time because they're skilling themselves up to make them more valuable to you for you to then pay them more? Would love to. I mean, is there some outside of work kind of training? And obviously, if you want to push your career further, then Scott's got his hand up. Yes, interesting topics.
It is, because here's the thing, and again, this is the old school versus the new school mindset of the businesses I've worked for. If you invest in those guys and you value them, and yes, that then means that you've trained them and now they're worth more potentially in the market and you can afford to give them a pay rise. If you make the culture a place of where they want to be and you're investing in them and you have a great relationship, they're not looking out in the market to go anywhere else. But if you don't invest in them and they are thirsty to grow and develop and they're not getting that where they are, they will start to look. And when they start to look and they go somewhere else, you've now got to replace them, and you're going to be paying recruitment fees, and you're going to have downtime, and you're going to have 3 to 6 months as the next person steps into post and has to ramp up. All of that cost is stuff that you could have had just by investing in the training, having a great relationship, and giving someone a slight pay bump, and respecting the time and energy that they put into your business. And it will cost you less.
Absolutely. So to answer Pete, I guess in the most diplomatic way, yes, I think you have to, but I think it has to come with clear expectations that time is flexible. I'm not going to pretend we haven't been burnt from it. We've had quite a lot of burns from that time, and actually they're on Steam playing Age of Empires or whatever that comes to mind, because I was playing it with some of the guys last night. But something that it's kind of, I take it personally because I care so much. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and when someone abuses something so nice, it really digs deep, and I feel like it's a personal attack. But more often than not, it's a win. But it comes with the expectation of, hey, this is kind of a bit flexible, and sometimes that might have to move. The most recent example, obviously, being COVID. There was a period where everyone knows everyone's help desk went on fire, and tickets doubled overnight. I'm afraid all of your training is going to have to wait for the next couple of weeks. And I, in my relationships with people within the business, and also even family members and friends, I believe it's always a two-way exchange, right? And yes, you may turn up 10 minutes late. I would probably expect you at some point to have put 10 minutes extra in, and because you were working on a ticket, and it's to and fro. I never think it should be hard and fast. It has to be to some degree, obviously, because we're a timed help desk, but we've got loads of young guys that love popping out for a random fag at some point. And that's fine, because I know that they're probably 20 minutes over making up for it, or just focusing on their work because they care. So it comes down to that give and take, which unfortunately at some point I suspect has to become some sort of more defined rule. But for the moment it's winning, so leave it as it is, I think.
So one more or two more questions actually, to Jason, and I open up to others. Do you pay for their exams, and do you claw back any training costs if they then leave within 3-6 months? Because that's quite a common thing in our industry.
So this is a sensitive topic. Nigel may or may not know, New Zealand laws really favour the employees. And so we recently had an example of someone taking a really expensive course, leaving 2 months later, and you can't do anything about it. You're not protected in any way, shape or form. And when I say expensive, I'm talking, I think it's 5,000 upwards. And so that hurt a little bit. Again, going back to me being a sensitive soul, I don't know where that comes from. I felt like I'd been screwed over. A few of us did. Me and Brad sat down and were a bit gutted. I believe if you leave within 6 months of the course, we claim back 50%. Is what's in the contract. But in terms of paying for them, yes, as long as there is a genuine business alignment, and as long as it is kind of vetted by us in terms of, you can't just go and pick a £10,000 course. We'll have a look at what courses are out there and agree it together. Then yeah, absolutely. We've just put two of the people Scott will know very, very well are both just been signed up to a VMware course. That's a nice, 4-figure investment into each of them. I think one of them's just doing the exam in the next couple of weeks. But that's a great way of getting buy-in. In the UK, it's a little bit easier because you do have a bit of protection. You can sort of have the 50% piece, which, to be honest, I think you have to have. I don't see that you can afford, when you think of the modern day recruiter fees, tooling, and then losing all the learning fees. I don't think it's unfortunately feasible. But in places like New Zealand, it's impossible, and we unfortunately can't. So we just have to take, hopefully, the losses with many more wins.
Wow.
Yeah, I think
So
from what I see, that's the. You go, Pete.
I was just going to say very, very briefly, for those of you who aren't aware, certainly in the UK market by the sounds of things, you can add that clause into your contract. It's something I've always had in my contracts. We've always put it in ours. But you just say, if you leave the company and you've had X amount of money spent on training, you pay back 50% within this much, 75% within. You basically set out what you want in your contracts.
Right. Yeah, we don't have that available out here in Australia, I'm pretty sure. Well, I think our law system is very similar to the New Zealand, so I'm pretty sure it's the exact same. But we were always in my early years, I was always so worried about putting staff through training because it cost all that money and time away from the business, and I didn't have a lot of money back then as well, so it was even harder to make the decisions. And so I ended up shying away from putting them through training because I didn't want to go through that process of potentially putting them through and losing it. In my latter years in the business, I realized that, and there's an old saying that I'm sure everybody's heard of, what happens if you train your staff and educate your staff and spend all this money educating your staff and they leave? And then there's the flip side of that conversation. What happens if you don't train your staff and they stay? And that rang true so much for me. And then I went, hang on, that makes sense. What happens if I don't train them and they stay? And they're the ones that are going to stick around supporting my clients and looking after all my stuff. And so that flipped my whole mindset around. And from then onwards, I was more than happy to go and throw whatever I could at staff whenever they wanted it, as long as I think you said it, Scott, as long as it lined up with our goals in our business of where we were going, and as long as it was technology that we were working on and whatever. And sure, we probably copped a hit here and there where someone left too early and we weren't able to claw anything back. But overall, the numbers were far more in the positive than the negative side. And I think that's the part of it, is that if you get 1 in every 5 or 1 in every 10 or 1 in every 20 person that comes in and spends that $5,000 on a course and leaves, you've still got the other 9 out of 10 that went and did the right thing, and they're sticking around and looking after your clients with all the training that you've given them. And I think that's what it's about, is focusing on the positives there, and hopefully there's a lot of them, versus worrying too much about the negatives and just writing them off as a cost of doing business and a lesson learned in the type of people to hire further on next time around you're doing a hiring campaign.
I'd love to see there must be a calculation for this somewhere in terms of how much time it takes to retain really good talent and how much time it takes to replace them. They must be net even. There must be the amount of time you spend retaining this talent, you're going to get it back because either the output is going to increase or improve or increase in value, or you're not going to spend the multiple hours interviewing, talking to recruiters or whatever that process is. So it's kind of, I only say that because I see a lot of MSPs not spend as much time as they probably should. But the minute someone leaves, they go to panic stations. They spend 2 days calling every recruiter they possibly can, looking for people, and suddenly the time's available. Well, if you just kind of put divvies of that time in earlier, you may not unfortunately be in that position. So it'd be really interesting to see if there must be something that means that is net equal, I suspect.
I think it's more in your favor. Genuinely, having managed teams, I think the biggest team I had in total was 100. Multiple different line managers in there. But what and you'll see this in your own teams all the time, is that there are people that are just committed and loyal and put in the time and the effort and the hours. And there's guys that come in and do the 9 to 5. And it's what is it that takes them from being just a 9 to 5 guy to an absolute fan, someone who's in love with the organization and someone who loves the culture. And it's oftentimes so much around appraising and recognizing and building relationships, but also investing. And there is that reciprocity. You invest in them and they feel part of the business. They feel part of the culture. And you'll then see that those people, it's almost like when you take people from, and turning them into fans, when you think about your social media side of things. It's building those fans inside the organization, people who love the culture of the business and not just treating them as a ticket monkey. If we think of like first and second line guys, there's no reason to just treat people like ticket monkeys, treat them as a resource that smashes through the tickets and answers the phone calls. That's not valuing them as a person. And people are going to stay with great managers where they feel valued and they feel invested in. And I can think of the sheer amount of times that we hired and then you go through the interview process and you pay the recruitment fees, and that's a crap hire. That person was thirsty from leaving the last job. They dressed up the reasons for leaving. They bring them in. They seem okay at the interview. You take 3 months and get them all up to speed and realize this is a crap hire. I really wish we just kept the last guy on side. What could we have done to keep them in post? And it just comes down to appraisals, human contact, relationships, and investment. Genuinely, I think it's far more in your favor to keep those guys if they're the right guys. If you identify that they're not the right guys, then you should have that grown-up conversation too.
Agreed. We are at time. Oh, hang on. Pete, you got a last.
I'll just finish this section off quite nicely with, what do you think of the phrase hire fast, fire faster?
Whoa.
How what's the point where you do just say, actually, they were the wrong hire, let's get rid of you?
So people know this from traction, and I heard this from is it Gary Vaynerchuk? Is that how you say it?
I think that was.
He said I think it was slightly different. It was like hire fire fast, hire slow, but very meaning the same. I didn't realize until we done right person, right seat what having one bad toxic person can do to an organization. I'll be quite open. I sat in the meeting room, the leadership team, and said, this isn't the right thing to do. I don't think we should get rid of this person. I think he can have another chance. I think, even though he's had 10 already, I see the good in him. And as a sensitive soul, again, I think he can change and he can become the right individual. And credit to Brad. Brad was like, no, you have to follow what it says. And it says, if they're wrong person, wrong seat, and there is nowhere for them, they can't unfortunately be here. And I tell you, night and day difference, almost overnight, to the point where many of the other people in that particular person's team actually said, I think that was a good move. And so going back to that particular analogy, I think as long as you can, if asked, explain it to your members of staff, because it can cause a bit of is people's jobs up for grabs here? What's going on? As long as you can explain it and sort of sit behind it, I sort of saw that they all bought into that idea and saw where it was going and thought, do you know what? That was an anchor for us. And now as a team, we can propel forward. But hey, by the way, in this new chap you're looking for, can you make sure he has these traits instead of these traits? So it worked really, really well for us.
That's one of my biggest failures. I was going to say, it's one of my biggest failures in running a business. I think I didn't fire people. I was much like you, Jason. I'm like, nah, just give them another chance. They'll be fine. They'll get better. And people naturally left. We had a few people left, and after they left, just the whole office just basically turned around and said that was a good decision. Like that, we're much better off. Like, let's crack on. Positive attitude. Like, we can now make some progress, because they were an anchor holding us back. And I wish I'd have made that decision much sooner. But one of these lessons you learn.
It's one of those things that you get better with over time as well, right? Like in my early years, I would keep people around until, as you said, Pete, until they left, because I'd ridden them so hard. In my latter years in the MSP, I'd gotten good I'd gotten better, not perfect at it, but good at figuring out really quickly whether someone was going to be a fit or not, and knowing when to move them on. And I think it's just it comes with confidence as well as you go through that thing. The more you go through knowing that you're now confident that person's not a good fit, it's easier to make that decision to politely and nicely move them along. And I've had some where it's happened within weeks now, with that whole fire faster or fire slow, whatever you want it to be. I've had some that have happened within weeks, where in my early years in business, it would have taken me months to get rid of that person, because I was always just like, no, we'll be able to get them right. But I think I got to the point where I was able to pick up or learn what were the better people were to hire, because I'd figured out our values, and I'd figured out how to look for those traits in people, and I'd figured out IQ versus EQ and all of those things a whole lot more than what I did in the first stages out there. I think that's a topic we can go very deeply into again. We're out of time though. We're 10 past, and we try to keep this thing to an hour. So we will wrap it up here. Thank you, Jason, for jumping on. It's been awesome.
Thank you.
So to hang out. For those of you that are listening and watching this either live or the recording, if you don't know what Jason's business is, I'm going to give him the quick shout out and the pitch and the plug here. He runs a business called Uptime Solutions, which is an outsourced help desk and knock, I believe, and project team for MSPs all around the world. And they've got a team in the UK and a team over in New Zealand. So I believe it's 24/7 now. So you can follow the sun essentially. And it's uptime-solutions.co.uk. Is that the URL?
I honestly, I hate plugging. I don't want to ever feel like
you got to tell me a URL so I can
spend my time. It's uptimesolutions.tech.
.tech, right, there you go. So if you're an MSP and you want to check out his service, which helps you kind of augment your team with a help desk team, whatever, go and check that out. If you want to go and check out Pete's and get some one-on-one coaching, advice, support on running an MSP from someone who has been there and done it and sold one successfully, go and check out notourbusinesscoach.com. And for Scott, if you want to go and check out how an MSP is doing a great job of running a YouTube channel, go and search for, it's Cloud Nexus on YouTube, isn't it? And all of these links are going to be in the show notes below here. And if you've heard about this thing called the Tech Tribe and you want to check us out, head to thetechtribe.com. I'm going to wrap up here, though. Thank you, gentlemen. And I don't know what our topic's going to be next week, but we'll find something to babble on about in the MSP space. There is always a million topics to dive into, and we've all got a not-so-humble opinion each about all of them and each of them. It's been fun. Thank you, everybody in the chat. I saw the chat going off a hell of a lot, and there's a few new faces that I haven't seen before, Martin and Daniel and Theo and Ismail. So thanks, guys, for popping up in the chat. I was going to say the recording will be up in a few days, which is what I normally say for our recordings inside the Tech Tribe, but we're going live on this YouTube thing now, so the recording's there automatically.
The podcast, Nigel. The podcast.
Don't ask me about the podcast. One of these years it'll turn up. I knew you were going to ask about the podcast. Robin says, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, go and hit the subscribe button, which is somewhere there or there or there or there. And with that said, yeah, Jason's saying it's down there. With that said, I'm going to click the end stream button. Have an awesome week, everybody. Enjoy, go out and look after your team, invest in your team, which is what this is all about. Hopefully you've learned some nuggets, and that is all from us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye for now.